Hey everybody, Ryan here. In this tutorial video, I'll be showing you everything you need to know about guiding M-Class AGMs in War Thunder. And just so we're on the same page, that stands for Manual Command Line of Sight Air-to-Ground Missile. And here's all of the missiles that use this type of guidance. The AGM-12B and C Bullpup, KH-23M, AS-20 and AS-30 Nords, and the RB-05A. And I'll be including a little trick using this thing right here. But anyways, first things first is controls. So I'm in a test drive right now with the Bullpups, and I'm just going to go straight into the controls in the aircraft section. I would be tempted to say the first keybinds you should adjust are the Fire Air Ground Missile keybind and Select Weapons keybind. However, I feel like the thing that most people really need to change, just search for AIM, AIM, and you'll find the two axes for aiming, both on the yaw and pitch axis. Now these two controls will be the same control used for every M-Class AGM in the game. And to adjust the detailed values for these controls, you just double click on the area with the controls shown. And the two major things that need to be changed is disabling relative control and lowering the multiplier value to its lowest at 0.2, which decreases the sensitivity of adjustment. And then do the same for the pitch axis. And now that you've adjusted the sensitivity of the missiles, let's go back and adjust some other controls. And first, I would highly recommend that you set the Fire Air-to-Ground Missile keybind separately, because by default, I don't know what exactly is set to, but when you press the drop bomb button, it will also fire the air-to-ground missiles. So you don't want to be doing that because you're either going to waste a bomb or waste a AGM. Anyways, I have my Fire Air-to-Ground Missile key set to X, but that's just personal preference and personal key setup. And just as a note, this keybind also works for laser and IR guided missiles. And the last keybinds that I would highly recommend you to bind is by searching for weapon and setting the switch secondary weapons and exit selected weapon mode keybinds. The secondary weapons keybind is very useful if you want to make sure you're going to fire the right ordnance when you want to, such as on a specific loadout with the A4E early. This allows you to switch between the AGM-12C and 12B Bullpups, which have different ranges. And then the exit selected weapon mode, because sometimes you'll get stuck on a certain weapon and won't be able to fire your air-to-air missiles, for example. And then just quickly going back to the yaw and pitch axis, I want to just briefly clarify what these controls do. So the maximum value will make the missile yaw to the right, and the minimum will make it yaw to the left. However, you can also invert the axis with this toggle switch right here. Anyways, and on the pitch axis, the maximum value will make the missile pitch down and the minimum value will make it pitch up. Now, I'll talk about setting up for an attack run later, but for now, let's just see a quick example of using the AGMs. So as long as you have an AGM selected directly with the selection mode, or you just have no selection, you can press the air-to-ground missile keybind and fire an AGM. And the way that you set up the movement controls for the missile is going to be personal preference, because I know some people like it to be inverted, like S for pull up, but for me, I do it just like that. And let me give a slightly more clear example of the actual guidance here, and maybe commit a little bit of fratricide on these poor patrol boats. W moves the missile up on the screen, A and D move it left and right respectively, and S moves it down. And of course, I was doing over-exaggerated adjustments just to show the guidance capabilities of these missiles, but it's pretty easy to hit things at this range. And let's see if I can hit this last patrol boat from, I don't know, maybe this is like 6 or 7 kilometers. Just ever so gently tapping the keys to guide it, keeping my eyes always tracking the missile in flight. It's slightly difficult now because they changed the effects. There we go, direct hit. Lovely. Now, I'm really not sure how feasible that type of long-range guidance is for people playing on lower resolutions or with lower settings, so your mileage may vary in terms of hitting things at range like that. And sometimes you miss. Sometimes I miss. It just happens. Sometimes the network interpolation of the vehicle you're aiming at is all over the place, and you might hit 20 feet off when it looked like you were right on target. And again, guiding M-Class AGMs is very much a matter of slight taps on the controls, and you definitely have to keep the missile in your focus the entire time. And there we go. Missed the target a little bit, but still got the kill with the large explosive mass. And now for the second part of this video, let's take a quick look at each missile individually and see their stats and see maybe which one is the best. And also see which airframes can carry them. But first, before I get all nerdy with the detailed specs, here's a quick tier list of all the missiles. So the AGM-12B has a speed of 455 meters per second, which is roughly 1.3 Mach, and has a firing range of 8 kilometers and a guidance time of 30 seconds. Now, knowing those stats off the top of your head isn't very important aside from the firing range. The most important one, however, is the TNT equivalent, which on the Bullpup is 58.05 kilograms. And this pretty much means depending on your target, you can miss by about 4 to 5 meters and still get a kill, because it has almost the same TNT equivalent as this 250-pound bomb. And with the AGM-12C, it's negligibly slower, still at 1.3 Mach, and has a doubled firing range of 16 kilometers, which, however, is a theoretical maximum range and depends on the inherited speed of the aircraft and the altitude. And generally, you're pretty safe to fire these within 10 to 11 kilometers, which is also pretty much the limit of visual range from third-person zoom. However, with the 12Cs, you also get a pretty much doubled explosive mass with 136.5 kilograms of straight TNT, which when compared with this 500-pound dumb bomb, you can pretty much miss your target by about 8 meters. Which also means the 12C is juicy for double kills and even triple kills, depending on the proximity of the targets that you're shooting at. And Bullpups also launch pretty normally by just flying straight off the rail. And they have a short boost phase where there's a large cloud of white smoke, which quickly disappears and leaves you with a nice dot to follow for aiming. And they can be fitted to all of these aircraft shown on screen, which includes the C variant. And now on the Russian side, you get the KH-23M, which is the fastest M-Class AGM with a maximum speed of 2 Mach, and a firing range of 10 kilometers and a guidance time of 30 seconds, and also having a very respectable TNT equivalent of 96 kilograms, which is pretty much the same as this 250 kilogram OFAB 250. And the KH-23Ms have 2 motors that come out the sides with a very short smoke trail, which remains throughout the entire burn time. And they also have a very short jettison phase where they pop off of the pylon and then engage the motors. And this missile is also relatively common and can be mounted on all vehicles in this list. And now for the AS-20 and AS-30 Nord. Starting with the 20, it's also very fast with a max speed of 1.7 Mach, a firing range of 8 kilometers, guidance time of 30 seconds. However, it does have the lowest explosive mass of any M-Class AGM and most ordnance in the game really, with only 15.8 kilograms of TNT equivalent. And that means you basically have to hit your target directly if you're using an AS-20 Nord, which of course is not to be confused with its big brother, the AS-30, which happens to be the slowest M-Class AGM in the game at 370 meters per second, which is just above Mach 1. And it has a slightly farther firing range of 10 kilometers with a lower missile guidance time of 22 seconds, but has a far better explosive mass with 115.2 kilograms of TNT equivalent, which means you can be way less precise when using this variant of the Nord. And for AS-20s and 30s, they pretty much engage their motor as soon as they're off the pylon and have a large amount of white smoke from the motors that continues through the entire burn time. So it does make them a little bit of a pain to guide sometimes. And the AS-20 can be mounted on this list of vehicles, and the AS-30 onto these ones. And then the final missile for this section is the Swedish RB-05A, which again travels at about 1.3 Mach with a firing range of 8 kilometers and a guidance time of 24 seconds. However, this missile also has a very respectable explosive mass at 76.8 kilograms. And the RB-05As are also the most interesting missile of the bunch because they also have a very significant amount of smoke from the motor, but they also fire very slowly off the rail, which makes it kind of awkward to aim. But once you get used to it, they're not the worst because they have very good amount of TNT. However, most vehicles that carry the RB-05 either carry a limited amount of them, such as the SK-60B with only 2 missiles, or have slightly better armaments available to choose from. And that being said, it can be equipped on these 4 vehicles, making it also the least common M-Class AGM in the game. And now for the third part of this video, I want to go over tips and tricks for tactics when using M-Class AGMs, which basically means how to deploy them in an actual battle and what I usually do that finds me the most success. So for me, typically when I bring AGMs into a GRB match, depending on the BR and any known presence of anti-airs on the enemy team, I'll immediately climb up to a ceiling of about 5 kilometers. And generally the entire time that you're climbing, you should be zoomed in third person looking at the ground for gun smoke effects or maybe a scout mark or just anything you can see. It's going to be very difficult to see, of course, because they're just black dots, but you need to be actively looking for a target to engage, because one of the goals, of course, is to get kills, but the primary goal should be to not die. And to not die, you need to be in the air over any potential anti-air for as short a time as possible. All right, I'm way above where I said I wanted to be, but we're here at 6.6 kilometers, which is not really the best for the current update because you have a giant contrail, but when you're gonna do the attack, you should turn off your engine and deploy your air brakes anyways. And also, generally, if I'm trying to stay safe, I like to engage from about a 70-degree dive. For an actual attack, the engine is off and the air brakes are out, and I launch the AGM by pointing directly at the target that I want to shoot. And depending on the terrain type that you're fighting in, it can be really difficult to actually see the missile when you're guiding it, but you just need to put some focus onto watching that little dot on the sustain burner. And unless you've already got another target lined up, if you just get one kill and get out climbing again, that's definitely a win. Or if you know there's AA up and you're going to be targeted, you should stay low and either climb far away and come in from the vertical again, or do some low altitude strikes. And for this last part of the video, I want to show you a trick where when using a plane that can mount a TV guided ordnance and M-Class AGMs at the same time, you can actually use the TV camera to guide AGMs, sort of like a targeting pod. And for this example, I'm using the A4E early, but you can use this trick with other vehicles, once again with a TV ordnance alongside an M-Class AGM. And the loadout for this is one AGM-62 Walleye with 3 AGM-12B Bullpups and one 12C Bullpup. And this does involve one more quick keybind, which I would recommend that you use, although you don't have to. Now, if you just search for target, you can find the activate target point keybind, which you're going to need to set the location where the Walleye camera will be looking at. And so let's get into approach configuration with throttle at 0 and air brakes out. And if you just press your view change button, it'll turn the camera on pointed somewhere forwards. However, if you want to, you can enable the target point and then the camera will look directly at that point. So that's kind of helpful. Anyways, so let me select my AGM-12C Bullpup, set the target point and fire directly at it. Go into my camera and then look for the missile. There it is. And now we can just guide it using the same Alt-WASD controls while inside of the Walleye camera. And with this, you can reliably hit targets at pretty much the maximum range of the missile. And that was like, what did I fire that at? Like 9 kilometers or something? Now, obviously a Tunguska has a farther range than 9 kilometers, but not by much. However, this vehicle right here is at 8.7, and most AAs at this BR don't have a range of 10 kilometers. So you can really do some nasty things. And now here, this is very analogous to how it would be in an actual battle. You have a capture zone somewhere on the map that'll show you the distance that you're away from the battlefield. And so let me just get back into approach configuration, wait until the 8 kilometer mark, but a little bit under, maybe like 7.8 for adjustments. Fire the missile, set the target point, and at this point you can even move up slightly so you're not diving straight at the battlefield. But you gotta be careful, because you don't want to lose your missile and you don't want to break the gimbal lock with the camera on the Walleye. But here we go. Again, small, light taps, guiding the missile into the target. There we go. Anyways, I think that's all I have in terms of tips and tricks for M-Class AGMs in War Thunder. And as always, if you did learn something or you just enjoyed the show, then please leave a little love on the video because I do greatly appreciate it. And with that said, if you happen to have any additional tips that I might have missed myself or that you might have hidden away in your skill bank, then definitely drop them in the comments. And of course, a huge thanks to these individuals on screen for supporting me at tier 3, and video's over, bye!